Before we begin, a quick message to our incredible viewers. If this is your first time here or you're one of our returning supporters, we truly appreciate you. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions make a huge difference in helping us share these gripping stories with more people. So, if you haven't already, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button and drop a comment below about what you think of today's story. Your engagement keeps us going, and we thank you for being part of this journey with us. In the bustling corridors of a school praised for its academic excellence, students walk with purpose. There's a certain pride in the air, a pride shared by parents, teachers, and even the community, who all celebrate the institution as one of the best in the region. For years, the school has been a beacon of education, a place where young minds are molded for greatness, where dreams are nurtured, and where values of integrity and hard work are instilled in every student. But what happens when the very foundation of trust that holds this institution together is shaken to its core? What happens when those who are supposed to uphold these values, those who are looked up to as leaders, become the very ones who betray them? At the center of today's story is the school's principal. A figure of authority, respect, and admiration, someone who had spent years building a reputation as a dedicated educator and a firm but fair leader. To most, the principal was a role model, a person to be trusted. But behind this polished image lay a secret. A secret that would not only shock the school but also ripple through the community, leaving parents questioning, teachers divided, and students wondering if the very system they relied on was truly fair. Imagine this: exam season is in full swing. Tension runs high as students prepare for what could be the most critical tests of their academic lives. For some, these exams mean scholarships, prestigious university admissions, or simply the pride of achieving top marks. Everyone is under pressure, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Then, whispers begin to circulate. Whispers that some students, just a few, the ones who always seem to have an edge, already know the questions. Whispers that they've been seen meeting the principal in private. Whispers that grades are no longer just a reflection of hard work but of something much more troubling. These whispers turn into suspicions, and suspicions into investigations. What unfolds is a story that reveals the lengths some are willing to go for success and the devastating consequences of such actions. A story of greed, desperation, and betrayal in a place meant to be a sanctuary of learning. How did it come to this? What drove the principal, a person who should have been a protector of academic integrity, to such a decision? And what does this scandal mean for the students, the school, and the future of education itself? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking truth behind one of the most scandalous stories to ever emerge from a school, where trust was broken, and lives were changed forever. The school at the heart of this scandal wasn't just any school, it was an institution held in the highest regard. For decades, it had been celebrated as a beacon of academic excellence, with alumni who had gone on to achieve remarkable success in various fields. Its campus was a symbol of pride for the community, often described as a place where discipline and hard work went hand in hand with innovation and opportunity. Parents across the region scrambled to get their children admitted, believing this school offered not just an education, but a pathway to greatness. The school's academic programs were rigorous. Students were expected to excel, and the pressure to perform was immense. The end-of-year exams, in particular, were viewed as the ultimate test. For many students, these exams were the key to their future, determining university admissions, scholarship opportunities, and even the approval of their families. And at the helm of this institution was the principal, a seasoned educator with a glowing resume. For years, the principal had been the face of the school's success. Parents respected them, teachers admired their leadership, and students saw them as the ultimate authority. The principal's speeches at award ceremonies were always inspiring, filled with words about integrity, hard work, and the importance of education in shaping a brighter future. But as the pressure on the school to maintain its stellar reputation grew, so too did the pressure on the principal. The school's results were closely watched, not just by the local community but by the broader educational sector. A slight dip in performance could tarnish its image, leading to fewer applications and a loss of funding. Behind the scenes, the principal faced mounting expectations from board members, influential parents, and even local politicians. This pressure wasn't limited to the administration. Within the school, students were under immense strain. Top-performing students were often treated as examples for others to follow, but the reality behind their achievements wasn't always as perfect as it seemed. Many of these students were battling sleepless nights, anxiety, and the overwhelming fear of failure. For some, the drive to succeed wasn't just about personal ambition, it was about meeting the expectations of their families, who had sacrificed so much to give them a chance at success. Amid this high-pressure environment, cracks began to form. Teachers started noticing irregularities in test scores. Students who had previously struggled were suddenly acing exams with ease, while others, known for their diligence, were falling behind. Discussions in staff meetings turned heated, with accusations of favoritism and unfair practices surfacing. And then there were the whispers. Quiet conversations among students about certain individuals who always seemed to know exactly what would appear on the exams. Stories of secret meetings and mysterious favors exchanged behind closed doors. For a while, these rumors were dismissed as the usual gossip that circulates in any school. But one teacher decided to pay closer attention. They noticed patterns, specific students who consistently performed just a little too perfectly. And the connections between those students and the principal were hard to ignore. One by one, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. As the truth started to emerge, it became clear that this wasn't just a case of a few students getting an unfair advantage. This was something much bigger. A carefully orchestrated scheme that involved access to the most sensitive materials, the exam questions themselves. How had the principal managed to access these questions? Why had they done it? And who else was involved? These questions would soon be answered, but not before the damage was done. For the students, the teachers, and the entire community, the revelation of this scheme would be nothing short of a betrayal of everything the school stood for. Exam season at this school was always intense, a time when the entire campus seemed to hold its breath. Desks were arranged in perfect rows, invigilators stood watchful, and every moment in the exam hall carried an air of solemnity. For students, it was the culmination of months of preparation and stress. For teachers, it was a test of their efforts in the classroom. And for the principal, it was a critical moment to prove the school's standing. But behind this carefully orchestrated facade, something else was happening, something that would soon shatter the illusion of fairness and integrity. The scheme began subtly. The principal, trusted with access to the sealed exam materials, found a way to exploit the system. These materials, secured in locked cabinets and only accessible to authorized personnel, were meant to remain untouched until the exams began. Yet, at some point, the principal began using their position to break this sacred trust. The exam questions were copied, whether by taking photographs or transcribing them onto personal devices. The process was discreet, leaving no obvious trail. Once in possession of these questions, the principal would approach select students or, in some cases, their families. The choice of whom to involve wasn't random. These were often students from influential families, those whose parents had deep pockets or strong connections. In private meetings held away from prying eyes, the principal presented these families with an opportunity, access to the exam questions, in exchange for a price. The price varied. For some families, it was a direct monetary transaction, large sums of cash handed over discreetly, ensuring there was no paper trail. For others, it was favors, gifts of expensive items, promises of political support, or professional endorsements. Whatever the payment method, the deal was always conducted in a way that left the principal untouchable, or so they thought. For the students involved, the leaked questions became their secret weapon. Some tried to be subtle, using the information to focus their study efforts on specific topics, ensuring they wouldn't draw suspicion. Others, bolder and less cautious, memorized entire answers and regurgitated them during the exams, leading to perfect scores that defied their usual performance levels. But this wasn't just about the students. Teachers began to notice patterns in the answers. Identical phrasing, word-for-word replication, and unusual leaps in performance were hard to ignore. In one exam, a teacher noted that several students had made the same obscure mistake on an advanced mathematics problem, a mistake that wasn't in any textbook or past paper but happened to be in the leaked materials. Suspicions grew. Teachers started comparing notes, sharing their concerns in hushed conversations. Yet, approaching the principal with these concerns felt impossible. After all, the principal was the very person meant to uphold the school's integrity. To accuse them without evidence was a risk no one was willing to take. Meanwhile, the students involved in the scheme carried their own burdens. While some reveled in their newfound success, others struggled with guilt and fear. They worried about being caught, about what would happen if their secret came to light. One student, overheard whispering to a friend, expressed their anxiety about being too perfect, fearing it would raise suspicions. The tension reached a breaking point when a whistleblower stepped forward. It was a teacher, someone who had worked at the school for years and believed deeply in its mission. This teacher had noticed too many irregularities and decided to act. They began gathering evidence, noting down suspicious patterns and collecting testimonies from colleagues. Their investigation led them to a student who had recently aced several exams. This student, under pressure, confessed to having received the questions in advance. The teacher's suspicions were confirmed, but this was only the beginning. The student's admission pointed directly to the principal as the source of the leak. The scheme had begun to unravel. The carefully constructed web of secrecy was falling apart, and it was only a matter of time before the full extent of the scandal was revealed. As the scandal began to take shape, the teacher-turned-whistleblower knew this was a battle that required strategy and resilience. The teacher's first step was to approach a trusted colleague, someone who shared their commitment to integrity. Together, they decided to gather more evidence before taking the issue to higher authorities. The whistleblower started digging into the details, scrutinizing exam scripts and identifying anomalies. Patterns emerged: identical answers among students, sudden and inexplicable grade spikes, and even handwriting on essay questions that seemed rehearsed rather than natural. They also noticed how certain students who had previously struggled academically were now outperforming their peers by suspicious margins. But this wasn't enough. To accuse the principal, the whistleblower needed irrefutable proof. They decided to go a step further, reaching out to the student who had earlier confessed to receiving the leaked questions. This time, the student revealed more, naming others involved and describing how the principal had provided the materials in secret meetings. Meanwhile, the principal, perhaps sensing the growing suspicions, became more cautious. They began avoiding direct interactions with staff and students, maintaining an air of normalcy while keeping a low profile. This behavior only added to the unease among teachers and administrators. The whistleblower's efforts intensified. With the help of a few brave colleagues, they began monitoring the principal's movements. They tracked which offices were accessed late at night and noted any unusual meetings or transactions. In one instance, a staff member reported seeing the principal leaving campus with a folder typically reserved for exam documents. The investigation gained momentum when an anonymous tip was sent to the school board. The tip outlined the allegations against the principal and hinted at the involvement of specific students. The board, though initially skeptical, decided to initiate an internal review. They discreetly assigned an independent investigator to look into the matter. The investigator's first move was to interview teachers and staff. The whistleblower shared their findings, presenting the evidence they had painstakingly collected. This included exam scripts, witness testimonies, and even emails that hinted at inappropriate exchanges between the principal and certain parents. Next came the students. The investigator approached them carefully, assuring them of confidentiality. While some denied any involvement, others, under the weight of guilt and fear, confessed. They described how their families had been contacted by the principal, the deals that were struck, and how they had received the exam questions. One student provided a key piece of evidence: a series of text messages exchanged with the principal. In these messages, the principal had outlined the terms of the deal, even specifying the amount of money required for access to the questions. This digital trail was a critical breakthrough. With mounting evidence, the investigator confronted the principal. The principal, at first, denied the allegations, calling them baseless and accusing the whistleblower of orchestrating a smear campaign. However, when presented with the text messages and testimonies, their defense began to crumble. The school board, faced with undeniable proof, took swift action. The principal was immediately suspended pending further investigation. The news spread like wildfire across the campus, leaving students, teachers, and parents in shock. Local media outlets picked up the story, amplifying its reach. Headlines painted a picture of betrayal: principal accused of selling exam questions, scandal rocks prestigious school, and trusted leader under fire for corruption. Journalists descended upon the school, seeking statements from anyone willing to speak. Parents, enraged by the betrayal, demanded accountability. Many gathered outside the school in protest, holding signs and calling for the principal's resignation. For them, this wasn't just about their children's education, it was about the betrayal of trust placed in an institution meant to uphold the highest standards. The fallout from the investigation was immense. The principal, now facing legal charges, became the focus of a criminal probe. Their once sterling reputation lay in ruins, replaced by the image of a leader who had prioritized personal gain over the values of education. But the investigation wasn't just about exposing the crime, it also forced the school to confront deeper issues. How had such a scheme gone unnoticed for so long? What systems had failed, allowing this breach of trust to occur? These questions would lead to sweeping changes in the school's policies, but for now, the focus remained on addressing the immediate damage. The consequences of the scandal were swift and far-reaching, shaking the foundation of trust within the school community. The principal, once a respected figure, now faced the full weight of the law. As the evidence stacked against them, their legal team scrambled to negotiate, but the charges were damning: breach of trust, corruption, and tampering with academic integrity. The trial became a spectacle, covered extensively by local media. Parents, teachers, and students followed the proceedings closely, their emotions swinging between anger, disappointment, and a sense of betrayal. Prosecutors presented the damning text messages, financial records, and testimonies from students and parents who had been approached by the principal. In court, the principal attempted to defend their actions, claiming pressure from the administration to maintain the school's reputation and produce top-performing students. However, the argument held little weight against the overwhelming evidence. The judge condemned their actions as a blatant abuse of power and sentenced them to a prison term along with substantial fines. As the trial concluded, the school had to reckon with the damage done. The academic records of students involved in the scandal were invalidated. This decision, though necessary, created chaos for those affected. Several students lost opportunities for university admissions, scholarships, and other academic accolades. Some families faced immense public scrutiny, their reputations tarnished by association. For the whistleblower and other teachers who had spoken up, the aftermath was bittersweet. While they felt vindicated for exposing the corruption, they also faced backlash from certain quarters. Some parents accused them of dragging the school's name through the mud, while others saw them as heroes who had protected the integrity of the education system. The students who had unwittingly benefited from the leaked questions bore the weight of guilt and shame. Many were ostracized by their peers, their academic achievements now viewed as undeserved. The emotional toll was significant, with some students seeking counseling to cope with the fallout. The school itself suffered immensely. Its reputation, once a source of pride, was now in tatters. Enrollment rates plummeted as parents withdrew their children, seeking institutions they felt could better safeguard their academic futures. Donors and sponsors pulled their support, leaving the school financially strained. To rebuild trust, the school administration implemented a series of reforms. These included stricter protocols for handling exam materials, increased transparency in academic processes, and mandatory ethics training for staff. They also set up an independent oversight committee to monitor the integrity of future examinations. The scandal sparked a larger conversation about the pressures within the education system. Parents and educators alike began questioning the emphasis placed on high-stakes testing and the lengths people might go to achieve success. This introspection extended beyond the school, with discussions taking place at the community and policy levels. Yet, amidst the damage, there were glimmers of hope. The story of the whistleblower inspired others to prioritize ethics over personal or institutional loyalty. Teachers across the region began advocating for better safeguards against academic misconduct. Parents, too, became more vigilant, emphasizing character and integrity alongside academic achievements for their children. For the students not involved in the scandal, the experience served as a profound lesson. They saw firsthand the consequences of prioritizing shortcuts over hard work and the importance of holding leaders accountable. The consequences of the scandal would linger for years, shaping the school's culture and the lives of everyone involved. It was a stark reminder that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild, and that the pursuit of success must never come at the cost of integrity. In the aftermath of the scandal, the community was left to grapple with the broader implications of what had unfolded. For many, the story of the principal's actions served as a stark reminder of the corruption that can infiltrate even the most trusted institutions when ambition and pressure overshadow ethical responsibility. Parents began reflecting on their own roles in fostering the pressures that push students and educators toward extreme measures. Conversations in homes shifted from grades and rankings to values like honesty, effort, and the true purpose of education. The scandal acted as a mirror, forcing many to reconsider what they had unknowingly prioritized in their quest for academic excellence. At the school, reforms were put into practice to restore integrity. The new leadership, chosen for their track record of transparency and ethical conduct, vowed to rebuild trust. The Oversight Committee played a vital role in ensuring that no single individual would have unchecked authority over exam processes again. Teachers received extensive training on ethics, and the school began offering workshops for students and parents about navigating academic pressures responsibly. For the whistleblower, the journey was not without its challenges. While celebrated by some as a moral hero, they faced ongoing tension within the school. Some colleagues, uncomfortable with the exposure of the scandal, distanced themselves. Yet, their actions had set a precedent for accountability, inspiring others in the educational community to stand firm in the face of wrongdoing. The students directly involved in the scandal faced the toughest road ahead. Many had to find alternative ways to continue their education, often at schools with lower academic reputations. The stigma followed them, and rebuilding their credibility required immense effort. A few turned their experiences into cautionary tales, speaking out about the dangers of shortcuts and the importance of earning success honestly. The broader society also took notice. The media coverage and public outrage triggered discussions at regional and national levels about the systemic issues in education. Policymakers proposed reforms to reduce the overemphasis on high-stakes testing, promoting a more holistic approach to evaluating student performance. Despite the challenges, there were stories of resilience. Some students, who had been unaware of the cheating scheme but whose achievements were nonetheless questioned, emerged stronger. They worked tirelessly to prove themselves through future endeavors, embodying the lesson that integrity is a long-term commitment. Looking back, the scandal illuminated a harsh but necessary truth: the pursuit of success must never override the principles of fairness and honesty. It underscored the need for vigilance in maintaining ethical standards within education, reminding everyone that leadership comes with the responsibility to protect the trust placed in one's hands. For the community, the pain of betrayal eventually gave way to a cautious optimism. The scandal, while devastating, had sparked meaningful change. Policies were strengthened, values were re-examined, and an entire generation of students witnessed firsthand the importance of integrity. One critical question lingers: how can we ensure that trust, once lost, is never again taken for granted? The answers lie not in individual actions but in the collective resolve of educators, parents, and society to prioritize what truly matters in education, learning that builds both intellect and character. See you in the comment section with your opinion.